Abba Yahuwah. Oh, my Father, I just want to thank you for this day. I thank you for the season that we find ourselves in. I thank you that we are in the season in our southern hemisphere where we are in the springtime, and it's so beautiful to just look at the new life all around us and to be able to see the greenery of the new life and to experience the warmth of your sun. And even though in the northern hemisphere they are going into autumn, but autumn is a beautiful time of year as well, where you just display your beauty in such a different way, where you see the leaves and the different colors of the leaves and how they start to fall off, and it's time to shed off the old, to rest in you in order to wait for the time of the new. And so, Father, with each one of our lives, you are taking us through a process where you are wanting us to be able to go through either a shedding of an old, to be able to embrace a new, and how you color our lives also differently. And each one of us is just a piece of a puzzle that you are putting together, a bigger puzzle that is what you are doing, this tapestry that you're wanting to complete. And each one of us makes a difference in the tapestry, because if there's one piece of a puzzle missing, you cannot complete a puzzle. And so I thank you, Father, that you will just help each one of us to realize the importance that we play in the bigger picture of what you're doing in these last days and in this end times, and for us to understand that each one of us is important to you, and for us never to look at ourselves and put ourselves down, or because we look at someone else and we look at their gifting and maybe our gifting is not quite the same, but you want to use each and every one of us differently. And together we make a body, because there's only one head, there's only one king, and we are your servants that are here to be able to serve your kingdom. And Abba Father, I just want to thank you. I thank you that in this group, each one of us find ourselves in a different place, and no one has arrived, because we're all on the journey, and no one is arrived. Yes, some people maybe are running the race a little bit further on than the others, but at the end of the day, we all need to complete the race, and we all have to go through our process of having to run the race, and no one can run that race for us. We need to run it ourselves, and you are the one that with your witnesses, with your cloud of witnesses cheering us on, in order to be able to finish the race that has been set before us. And I thank you, Abba Father, that what a privilege it is to be able to work through Abraham and the understanding of our father of our faith, Abraham, to understand that just like us, he was a mere man that came from a place of where he'd heard about you but didn't really know you. And he was looking for you, and he was seeking for you, and you revealed yourself to him. And Father, this is where we are right now. We are looking for you. We are wanting to seek you. We're wanting to knock on that door, that you will come and open up the door to our hearts, so that we may be able to just come and really become more intimate with you, that we don't want to just have religion where we go to church and go through the motion and read a Bible for the sake of reading it because of a guilty conscience, but that we can truly look through the pages of your word and come to know you more intimately, come to understand your heartbeats, and how you have worked with our patriots that have gone before us, someone like Father Abraham, the father of our faith, and to understand that just like us, He didn't start off as this mighty man. He didn't start off as this mighty man of faith. That just like us, he made many mistakes. But he continued along the path, and he continued to seek you. And you continued to work with him. And I thank you, Abba, that you didn't just leave him and you didn't just forsake him, but that you continued to work with him. He was a work in progress. And I thank you, Abba Father, because each one of us is a work in progress. But I know that you have a great plan for each and every one of our lives, and that in your picture we make such a difference, because if we're not part of that picture, the picture's not complete. And so I thank you, Father, that you work with each one of us individually, and yet together we work as a people that come and complete your kingdom for you. And so I thank you, Father, that this evening you will open up our spiritual minds and open up our hearts and reveal your word to us, so that we may just understand the deeper revelation of that which you're wanting to reveal in this hour, in this time, as we continue on our journey, as you continue to give us the manna that comes from heaven. Abba, I pray that you continue to open up your word so that we may truly feast at your table, because it's your word. Your word is alive. Your word comes to set free. Your word comes to nourish us. And we want to be those that can come and feast at your table, to be able to know the deeper revelation of your hearts. I praise and I thank you for this in Yahushua's name. Amen. Amen. And so today we are going to continue, as now we are going to start, as we looked last week, and we are going to continue with a new generation again, a new genealogy that's going to start again, a new Father's going to start afresh, as he did with Noah, as he did with Seth. So he's going to start afresh again. You know, when Cain killed Abel, then Father started again with the genealogy of Seth. And then from there it brought down a genealogy, and then he destroyed the earth, and he started again with Noah. And then we had a look last week, and we went a little bit deep into understanding the genealogy of the sons of Arpachshad, which is basically the genealogy that comes down from Shem. And this is Shem's genealogy. So we had a look at Shem's genealogy, and we had a look at each one of the children of Shem, but we specifically focused on the genealogy of Arpachshad, because Shem, and this is important that we look at this again today, because we are really going to understand Shem's genealogy. Shem's genealogy has everything to do with the name. It has to do with reputation. It has to do with fame. It has to do with glory. It has to do with the name. It's designated of the designation of Yah. It's got to do with honor. It's got to do with a mark. It's got to do with authority and character. But that genealogy of Shem came down through Arpachshad. And Arpachshad's name means I shall fail as the breast. He cursed the breast bottle. So something was going to come forth from this man. And he goes down with Shilach. And Shilach means to sprout. It means a missile. It means a weapon. It means a shoot. And we had a look at Isaiah from verses 1 to 4, and we saw that the stump of Jesse was the shoot, was the rod that came up. It was the branch that will bear fruit. And who does this talk about? in Isaiah chapter 11 from verses 1 to 4 talks none other than about Yahushua. And then we saw the next son was Iba, and Iba is the region of beyond. It is a cross. It is crossover. It is to march over, to go beyond, to overflow, to go over. So we understand that there's going to be a sprout, a missile, a weapon, a shoot that is going to be Yahushua, that's going to come forth from this genealogy, that is going to go beyond, that is going to cross over, that is going to go beyond, that's going to overflow. And this is none other than Messiah Yahushua, but the followers of Messiah Yahushua are called to cross over, to come out of the ways of the destruction of what this Babylon had to give us, this kingdom of Nimrod that was to do with Babel and to do with the rebellion of Babel, of building a Tower of Babel, of wanting to reach the gods, of wanting to make a name for ourselves, of wanting to be able to, because we read about Nimrod having to build this, there was basically this Tower of Babel, but they wanted to build a tower for themselves. It was to basically make a name for themselves, and Father came and confused their language. And so there's a language that's the language of destruction, the language of the enemy, and then there is a language of the ways of the Father. And so we're either going to follow the language of the ways of the enemy, or we're either going to follow the language of the way of the Father. But everything of this Babylon is everything to do with the mixed seed. It's the city of Babel that was about the mixed seed. And Father had to scatter us, and that is why when the enemy comes in like a flood, he raises a standard against him, and the enemy will scatter. The enemy scatters. Remember, when he would send out his army, they would blow the shofars, they would blow the trumpets, and the enemy would scatter. They wouldn't even have to go to battle, and the enemy would become confused and they would scatter. So we had a look at the other name of the other son was Peleg, and Peleg means division. It means to cleave, to split. So Yahushua has come to bring a division, so that he comes to, so that we may cleave to him, because he's going to bring a split. So the division and the split is so that we may cleave to him, because he will become our irrigation. He will become the river, the streams of life. And he's the one that has come to be able to divide, so that we may be able to follow him. Then there's Ru, and Ru means friend, pasture, companion, intimate. And it also means to shepherd. It means rule, leader, make friends with the shepherd, and shepherd. So Yahushua wants to become a friend. He wants us to be able to graze in his pastures. He wants to be our companion. He wants us to become intimate with him. He wants to be our leader. He wants to be our shepherd. He's the one who gives us the field where we're going to graze. Then there's Serug, and Serug means branch, to be intertwined, to wrap together, to intertwine oneself. So Yahushua wants us to become, he's the branch, that we may become intertwined and wrapped together with him, to be intertwined with him. And then there is Nahur, and Nahur is snorting, nostrils, to make a sudden explosive sound. So it can be looked at two ways. It can either be a snort of laughter, that we can laugh at the enemy, or else it can be one of an expression of indignation and derision against the works of the enemy. And then there is Tarak, and that is Tarak is Abraham's father, And that means delay of a certain derivation. So it's uncertain derivation, and it's really delay. So from Tarak, there is a delay. So that's the 9th down the genealogy. But when we get to Abraham is the exalted father. Abraham's name means my father is exalted. So it means the exalted one is my father. So Abba Yahuwah is going to become Abraham's exalted father. And he's going to exalt Abba Yahuwah. And so we pick up the story again now. As we continue today, we are going to pick up the story. So if we look at this genealogy, it is exactly 10 generations to Abraham. And so in verse 26, in Genesis chapter 11, verse 26, it says, and Tarak lived 70 years and brought forth Abram, Nahor, and Haran. And this is the genealogy of Tarak. Tarak brought forth Abram, Nahor, and Haran brought forth Lot. So Haran was the one that had a child, and his firstborn child was Lot. And Haran died before his father Tarak. So we don't really know what has happened there, but Haran dies in the land of his birth, which is Ur-Kasdim. Now, if we look at that word, Ur-Kasdim, the word Ur, that Ur is the word for flame, light of fire, a city in the south of Babylonia, the city of the Chaldeans, the center of moon worship. So this is once again where they are serving all these gods, because it is a city in the south of Babylonia, so it's part of Babylon. And it is a city of flame, a light of fire. So it is a city where they are doing a lot of moon worship. So you can imagine this is by this time. I mean, we have seen how many genealogies there are. And by this time, they're not really serving Abba Yahuwah. They have lost their way. They are no longer serving the ways of truth. They have maybe got a little bit of the ways of the Father, because of the still being the genealogy that comes down from Shem, and Shem being responsible to have taught them the righteous ways of Abba Yahuwah. But by this time, they would have been intermingled with this mixture of Babylon, where they don't have the true righteous ways of serving the Father. And then the Kasdim is Chaldeans, and that is clod breakers, and this is living on the lower Euphrates and the Tigris rivers. So this is really where we look at that area, is going to be where we would understand Turkey, part of Turkey, on the border of Turkey and Iraq, where Iraq would be. So we continue to read in Genesis chapter 29, and Abram and Nahor took wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah, and the father of Yiscah. So we see that there is Sarai. Now, what is interesting, Sarai's name means princess. So Sarai means princess, but it comes from the root word, which is Sar. And that word Sar means prince. It means ruler. It means leader. It means captain. It means noble. It means heads, princes of religious office, master, ruler. So Sarai was going to come forth, and she was going to bring forth a people that was going to become kings and priests that was going to come forth from Sarai. So Sarai was destined to bring forth princes and rulers and leaders and captains and noble men, heads, princes, and religious officers. So that would have been your priests and masters and rulers. So that is what Sarai's name means. So it means princess, but it comes from the root word sar. So already there, you see, the genealogy didn't go down through, it didn't go down through Nahor's wife. It went down through Abram. And so, you know, even though we see that Haran died, but there is Nahor, but yet the genealogy goes down through Abram. And Sarai was barren, she had no child. And Tarak took his son Abram and his grandson Lot. Now, interesting. He doesn't take his son Nahor, because if we look and see, Tarak lived 70 years and brought forth Abram, Nahor, and Haran. But where is Nahor? Nahor is then not mentioned. Haran was mentioned. He died. But he takes Tarak. Now understand, Tarak is the one that is delayed. So there's a delay in his life that needs to bring forth a promise. So there was a delay that has taken place. And what is the delay? The delay is that he has been promised to come into a promised land. And so Tarak took his son Abram and his grandson Lot, son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, his son Abram's wife, and they went out with them from Ur-Kasdim to go to the land of Canaan. So you see, Tarak has this notion in him. He knows that there is a land that has been promised him, because that was the inheritance that was given to Shem, is that he would dwell in the land of Canaan. Canaan was given to him because, remember, Canaan was cursed, and that he would dwell in the tents of Shem. Well, not dwell in his tents, he would serve Shem. And so there was already this thing that they were on their way to Canaan, and they came to Haran and dwelt there. So Tarak, there was that delay. So you see, because there was a delay, he never made the promised land. He delayed, he stayed in Haran, and he never made it into Canaan. So if we look at that word Haran, he comes into the land of Haran. Now Haran means mountaineer. It means hill country. Har, the word har is the word in Hebrew for mountain. But this Haran comes from the root word harar, which means to burn, be hot, be scorched, be burned, be dry, be angry. And this was the land that they were dwelling in of Haran. This was where they were. This is the land of Haran that they dwelt in. But then the Father brings forth Abram. And so it says in verse 12, and the days of Tarak, and they came to Haran and dwelt there, in verse 32. Chapter 11, verse 32. And the days of Tarak came to be 205 years, and Tarak died in Haran. So you see the delay. He never did make that promised land. But chapter 12, and now we start looking at the genealogy of Abram. And Yahuwah said to Abram, now interesting, here, all of a sudden, We don't get no explanation. But all of a sudden, Abba Yahuwah features. And now he's going to speak to Abraham. So Abba Yahuwah hasn't been speaking, so we don't see him really speaking to anyone else. But now, from the genealogy of Abram, now, this genealogy, this is the 10th generation. Abraham is the 10th generation. Now 10 is the number of fulfillment. So you see, it's now time to fulfill the promise that was already spoken already to Shem. And now it's time for fulfillment. It's the number of divine spiritual order. So from Abraham, Father is going to start a new spiritual order. It means completion of order. So from Abraham, he's going to complete again where there's been a mixed seed, where they're not serving Abba Yahuwah, where they've been serving moon gods, and they've been serving the sky gods, and they've been serving all these other gods, and they've been making. I mean, even when we look at the land of the Chaldeans, they had many little gods that they served. They had these tiny little gods, and they had many gods that they used to serve. And now we are going to start with a new order. It's the perfection of divine order. It's the whole cycle is complete. So 10 is the cycle that is now complete. So this is now when the Father now he's made a covenant. He made a covenant with Noah to say, I'm not going to destroy the earth again by water. I gave you a rainbow and I cut covenant with you. I have put a ring on your finger and I've made a covenant with you. And I want you to enter into covenant with me. And I want you to be my people. And I'm going to be your Yah. I'm going to be your father. I'm going to be your husbandman. I am the one that is going to want to be the one who's going to lead you. I want to be your creator. But I just don't want to just be your creator. I want to be your father. I want you to enter into a relationship with me. I want you to be able to come back to where you fell from in the Garden of Eden when you walked with me in the cool of the day. I want you to come back to that place. I want you to come and dwell with me as Enoch dwelt with me. I want you to dwell with me as Noah dwelt with me. I want you to dwell with me once again. I want a people that I can call my own. I want a people that are going to carry my name and are going to reflect me to the generations and to the nations around them. So he speaks to him and he says, and Yahuwah said to Abraham, go yourself out of your land, from your relatives and from your father's house, to a land which I show you. Isn't it interesting? Father calls him and he needs to come out of where he is. So he's saying in Revelation chapter 17 and in Revelation chapter 18, come out from among them. Come out of Babylon. Come out from this confusion. Come out from this way that is this mixed seed. Come out from your father's house. So if in your father's house where you are dwelling, you want to make a name for yourself and you want to be about your kingdom and you want to be about your ways, then I am saying to you, come out of this. Come out of your father's house, because your father's house has other gods. Your father's house has other ways of serving me. Your father's house is not serving me in the ways of truth. Your father's house is serving me, but with mixed seed. And I want a set apart seed that's going to worship me in spirit and in truth. So there's always a giving up to go up. Everybody wants to go up. Everybody wants to be the anointed and the appointed, but we never want to give up anything. You see, we want the Father to give us everything, but we don't want to give up anything. So it's like, I want him to serve me in my way. So I want a religion that's going to be able to cater to my flesh ways and my flesh need. So I am going to build my golden calf if need be, in order for him to be able to serve me in how I want to be able to serve him. But this is not what he said to Abraham. He said to Abraham, come out of the land where you dwell. Come out from your relatives. Come out from your familiar place. Because you see, the place that I'm taking you into is unfamiliar territory. And so there might be days ahead of us coming now where the Father's going to say again to us, come out. Come out from amongst them. Come out of the cities where you are. Come out of the places where you are. Come out of that job where you are. Come out of these things where you are, because this is going to be to your salvation. But if you stay, it's going to be to your detriment. He says, and I shall make you a great nation. So do you see, you want to become a great nation, but there's something we're going to have to give up. You see, but we seem to think that when the Father calls us, we don't need to give up anything. We want to be able to stay the way we are, carry on the way we are, behave the way we are, enjoy the things that we have in this world, and have him come into my sphere. No. That's not what he's saying. I will make you a great nation, but are you prepared to give up in order for you to go up? For you to go up with me, you need to give up something. And I shall make you a great nation and bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. So do you see, this is the promise that he's giving us. So if we are prepared to leave everything behind and follow him and go in the direction that he is calling us to go, leave the familiar territory to an unfamiliar territory and go on a path that is going to, maybe we cannot see what is ahead of us, but can we trust him? Because this is what he's requiring of Abraham. Can you trust me? Understand, he doesn't know him. This is one that he's heard about. This is the creator that he's heard about from his great-great-great-grandfather Shem, that's been passed down, that came from his great-great-great-grandfather Noah. The one that he's heard about from the flood. And he's calling him. And he's saying, come and follow me. And I shall bless those who bless you, and curse him who curses you. Wow. Imagine when you have the creator of the universe on your side. When you are obedient to follow him, then those who are going to curse you, he's going to curse, because he's the one who's going to fight for you, and you are going to hold your peace. But we still fight our own battles when we are still doing things in our own flesh. But when we stop being about our flesh and when we start to follow him, then he's the one that is going to make us great. We don't make ourselves great. We're not going to go build our own kingdom in order to make our name great. He's the one who's going to make us great. Because it's all going to be about him and his glory. Because we're going to understand this clearly tonight. And in you all the clans of the earth shall be blessed. So imagine, from this man, he's saying, from you, all the clans of the earth are going to be blessed. So imagine, when you are obedient to do what the Father wants you to do, then those who will come before you, those who will come after you, those of your family line, they will be the blessed. You are blessed to 1,000 generations, but you are only cursed to the third and the fourth generation. But you can be blessed to 1,000 generations if we will be willing to give up and go in the direction that he's got for us to go. If we will be willing to surrender, be willing and obedient to follow. But sometimes to follow might cost us everything. And that's not always easy. Do you understand? It's not always easy to hear that still small voice and say, come and follow me. Imagine, what did he say to the disciples? That was the same. I will make you fishers of men. You have been fishing for fish up until now, but I come and follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. But they had to let go of their nets. They had to let go of their livelihood, and they had to let go and follow him. But there came a time when now all of a sudden they were still worried about where they're going to get money from. Where the heck is the money going to come from? So they got to still resort back to what they know. And now they're getting back into the boats, and now they're going fishing again. But they fished all night and they caught nothing. And all of a sudden Yahushua comes and says, cast your nets on the right side of the boat. And he says, look, you know what? It's like Peter, like looking at him saying, look, you know what? We know about this fishing. We fished all night and we've caught nothing. Just cast your nets on the right side of the boat and follow me. Just be obedient to what I tell you to do. Wow, you know what? They caught enough fish that they put into the boat that I always said was enough to start a fish factory. Because they needed another boat in order to be able to come and just bring in the catch that they brought. Because when you are going to follow him, where he guides, he provides. So if he's the one who's guiding you, he's the one who's going to provide for you, because it's not your problem. And he was going to have to teach them that. But you understand, this is where we're going to embark on the journey to understand. Abraham didn't really understand this from the beginning, just like the disciples didn't understand it from the beginning, especially when they were called to be able to follow Yahushua. They didn't quite understand that from the beginning. And they were still trying to make their own plan, and they were still trying to do their own thing. You understand? But when Father says, follow me, when Father says, come, do it my way, then we leave all. When he called those disciples, they had to leave all to follow him, but yet they had bills to pay. So it's always difficult. And this is what is presented. This is what is facing Abraham right now. And the Father is giving him a promise. And you see, Father will never lead you without a promise. He will always give a promise. There's a promise for you to hold on to, because believe me, you need that promise. Because the enemy is going to come in your face. And the enemy is going to tell you that you're not going to succeed. That you know what, where's your father now? And what did your father, did he really speak to you? And he's going to make you question everything. But you see, you need to have the promise. And this is the promise that he's giving him. And he's saying, understand, Abraham was going to need a promise because his wife was going to be barren. But yet he's going to say that, you know what, he's going to be blessed. He's going to make him into a great nation. I shall make you a great nation. I am going to bless you, and I'm going to make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. So because of you, many are going to be blessed. So Abraham left, verse 4, chapter 12, verse 4. And Abraham left, and Yahuwah had commanded him. And Lot went with him. And Abraham was 75 years old when he set out from Haran. So understand, he was not young. He was already 75. But I suppose in that time it was young. And Abraham took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all their possessions, and that they had gathered, and the beings whom they had acquired in Haran, and they set out for the land of Canaan, and they came to the land of Canaan. So you see, Father might embark us on a journey. We are coming to a time now where Father's uprooting, and Father's going to relocate, and Father's going to say, it's time to move, because you need to go to the place that I've prepared for you. And so these times might just be ahead of us, and that is why we are covering certain things that we need to understand. When the Father calls you and the Father says it's time to go, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Are you going to be like Abraham, that is going to be willing to go as the Father leads, not even knowing what's ahead of him? And Abram passed through the land to the place of Shechem, as far as the terebinth tree of Moreh. At that time the Canaanites were in the land. Understand, this is the land of the Canaanites. This is where they lived. But remember, they were told that they were to be able to, there was the curse that came upon Canaan. And so we have a look at Canaan, and we understand that the promise of the land of Canaan that was given to them was the fact that Canaan was, the name of Canaan really meant humiliation. It meant that it would be subdued. So the land of Canaan was a land that was going to be humbled. It was going to be subdued. It was going to be brought low. It was going to be brought under subjection, because that's what the word Canaan means. Remember, that's what Noah's grandson Canaan, because it was Ham's son Canaan, and that's what his name meant. Humbled, subdued, brought low, brought under subjection. And isn't it interesting? Still today, this is what this land has been going through. This land is forever being humbled. This land is forever being subdued. There's always an enemy there wanting to be able to take it over. But the Canaanites were going to be humbled. They were going to be subdued. They were going to be brought low. They were going to be brought under subjection, because that is what the Father had already promised from the mouth of Noah. And we continue to read. It says, and Yahuwah appeared to Abram, verse 7. And Yahuwah appeared to Abram and said, to your seed I give this land. And he built there a slaughter place to Yahuwah, who had appeared to him. So, interesting how Abram is still got that, he still has the revelation that he would have learned from his great-great-great-grandfather Noah, that the minute, remember, the first thing that Noah did when he came off the ark is he built an altar of worship to the Father. He sacrificed to the Father, to offer sacrifices to the Father, because this is what the Father taught Adam. Adam had to bring a sacrifice. And remember, you had Cain and Abel that had to bring sacrifices. And so this was the way that it was to be able to worship the Father. So to sacrifice on an altar, an animal on the altar, was a form of worship to the Father. So as he enters into the land, the first thing that he's doing is he's offering a sacrifice to the Father, because a sacrifice in that day is a form of worship. That's why you offer him a sacrifice of praise, because we don't offer him animals on an altar anymore, but we offer him our praise and our worship. And from there he moved to the mountain east of Beit El, and he pitched his tent with Beit El on the west and Ai on the east, and he built there a slaughter place to Yahuwah, and called on the name of Yahuwah. Now that is very important, because you see, from Abram now, from Abram, there is going to be this 10th generation down from Shem of the name, because Shem was the name. He was the one that was going to bring down the name. He was the one that was going to bring down the reputation and the fame and the glory and the authority and the character of that name. And so if we go back and we look and we see in Genesis 4:26, when the Father starts again after Cain kills Abel, then the Father brings forth Seth, And it says from verses 25, and Adam knew his wife again, and she bore a son and called his name Seth. For Yahuwah had appointed him another seed instead of Habal, because Cain had killed him. And to Seth, to him also a son was born, and he called his name Enosh. Then it was begun to call on the name of Yahuwah. So you see, once Seth came, and Seth had his son Enosh, from the bloodline then of Enosh that was going to come down. Enosh, then Canaan, then Mahalalel, and then Yared, and then Hanok, and then Methuselah, and Lamech. They were all the genealogy that was going to call on the name of Yahuwah. So now we see Abraham is going to build a slaughter place in a place called Beit El, and he's going to build a slaughter place, and this is the place where he's going to call on the name of Yahuwah. Now, interesting that we must remember Beit El, because at a later stage, that is exactly where Jacob is going to have a dream in Beit El, where he's going to see the ladder going up to heaven, where Father is going to call Jacob as being the father of the 12 tribes of Israel. And so here in this place is where the name of Abba Yahuwah is to be called. Now, for those people that would want to turn around and say, but you know, the name of the Father is not important, I want you to understand already now, from this time now, how important it is, and we have been seeing it from the beginning, from Genesis chapter 4. We have been seeing the significance on the name, and we need to understand the genealogy of Shem is everything about the genealogy that is going to have everything to do with the name. And so that is why if we go look at when Messiah came, what was one of the very first things, what was one of the things that Messiah, as Messiah is now going to, I always say that was his last will and testament was John chapter 17. I absolutely love John chapter 17. And in John chapter 17, this is like when Yahushua, it's just before Yahushua is going to go to Gethsemane, and he's going to go to his death, basically. And he is now praying to his Father in John chapter 17. And I want you to understand that throughout this Bible, you will understand the significance of the Father's name. And that is why I need to be able to speak about this, because in our Bibles, where we are right now, if we go look at the normal Christian Bible, you do not have the Father's name at all. You call him Lord and you call him God, and you call him by titles, Lord and God and Lord and God and Lord and God, and we sing songs to Lord and we sing songs to God, but where is his name? And so more than 8,000 times in our Bible, everywhere where you see Lord, the name of the Father, which would have been the tetragrammation, being Yod-He, Vav-He, has been removed from our Bibles and replaced with Lord. Yet at the end of the day, the genealogy of Abraham, our father Abraham, has gone and sacrificed to his name, because he is going to come from a genealogy, from the genealogy of Shem, and everything about Shem had to do with the name, Ha-Shem. It's about those that are going to be able to bring glory and honor to the name, and they will be about the character of that name. And how will they not know the name? Because they're going to reflect the name. You first might get to know my name, and then you get to know the character of the person of that name. So maybe you get to know Natalia, and you hear about Natalia, but you don't know anything about me. You then come to know the character of the name. We, on the other hand, have come to know about our Father. But where is his name? His name has been hidden to us. His name has not been revealed. Yet in John chapter 17 verses 6, let's see what it says. Yahushua speaking, and he says, I have revealed your name to the men you gave me out of the world. They were yours, and you gave them to me, and they have guarded your word. So do you see, there's two things that these people are going to do. They're going to guard his word, and they're going to know his name. Because Yahushua came to reveal the Father's name to the people. Because why? His name had been hidden. His name has been hidden throughout the pages of this Bible, and even today the Jewish people hide his name. Still today the Jewish people hide the name because the Father removed the name. Then if we have a look at John chapter 17 verses 12. In John chapter 17 verses 12, what does he say? When I was with them in the world, I was guarding them in your name, which you have given me, and I watched over them, and not one of them perished, except the sons of destruction, that the scripture might be filled. Interesting. He guarded them in the name. He guarded them in his name. So how important is that name? How important is it to know the Father's name? Then we look at John chapter 17 verses 26. And I have made your name known to them. So Yahushua came to make the Father's name known to them. So what does the Father do? The Father reveals his name to Abraham. Just like the Father revealed his name to Enosh. From the time of Enosh, they started to call on the name of Yahuwah. And he says, I have made your name known to them, and they shall make it known. So Yahushua's disciples, those that are Yahushua's disciples, are going to make his name known, so that the love which you loved me might be in them and I in them. And so that is why this name is important. And that is why in this time of this teaching that we're going to have as we're embarking on this journey, part of what I am called to do is to teach the people his name. And that is what we will have a lesson where I'm going to teach you in depth his name and how the Father revealed his name to me. How did I come to this name of Yahuwah? Because from the time that I started these teachings, I've never used Lord and God. You haven't heard me use titles. You've always heard me use his name. And that is part of what it says here in John chapter 17 verses 26. I have made your name known to them and shall make it known. So it's part of what the Father wants to do, to make his name known. It's important because that name is everything attached to his character of who he is. And then we have a look in Revelation. In Revelation chapter 14. In Revelation chapter 14 from verses 1, it says, And I looked, and I saw a lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his Father's name written upon their foreheads. So do you see, it doesn't say it had Lord written on there. It didn't say that it had God written on there. It said it had the Father's name, Yod Heh Vav Heh. So do you see how important it is that we understand about a name? So it's important, the name. And so let's continue in our story in Genesis. And so in Genesis chapter 12, we continue to read. And it says, and Abram set out continuing towards the south. That is the Negev. So it's the south, it's the Negev. That's why it's there by Beersheba, in the south of Israel. And a scarcity of food came to be in the land. And Abram went down to Mitzrayim to dwell there, for the scarcity of food was severe in the land. So do you see the problem here? This is where we're going to close off today. But do you see when the problem is going to hit? Imagine the father's given him a promise. The father has told him, this is the way that you are to go. And the first hiccup that he finds is the fact that in this promised land that he has been called to, there's now a scarcity of food. So obviously this cannot be the promised land. So let us go on a detour, and we're going to go to Mitzrayim, because there's no food there. So, he called me to this land. He told me that this is the land that I've got to go to. But now I'm going to hit a hiccup. And you see, that's why so many times we go on a detour. And why do we go on a detour? We go on a detour because, we seem to think that when the Father gives us a promise, that everything is hunky-dory and everything is just going to be a bed of roses and everything is just going to go smooth and we're never going to run into any hiccups. Well, how are you going to build a muscle? Without wrestling, you cannot become strong. So at the end of the day, you can't just become a father of faith when you haven't had to overcome any challenges in your life. The only way that you're going to develop faith is when you're going to have to overcome an obstacle. There is no testimony if there isn't a test. And so how do you know you're going to overcome an obstacle if you haven't got an obstacle to overcome? So, what kind of a father of faith was he going to be if he wasn't going to be confronted with some challenges that are going to come his way? So you see, this is where we go wrong, because many times we seem to have this idea that just because I'm serving the Father, everything's going to be a bed of roses and I'm going to have everything going to go well for me. Listen, they were going to go into the promised land. The Israelites were going into the promised land. But when they went and they spied out the land, what did they see? They saw the giants in the land. And that's the only thing they focused on, was on the giants that were in the land. The giants always going to be there. The difference is he will help us to overcome the giants if we will give him the time and if we will allow him to be able to be the Father that he wants to be, in order to be able to be the one who's going to fight for you and you're going to hold your peace. But you see, many times we don't even give him the time of day because we will make our own plan. Just like now, already Abram is making his own plan. And this is why we're going to embark on a journey to understand that Abram is no different to what we are. Abram is going to behave no differently to the way we behave. And so that is why I love the story of Abram, because I see myself there. Because I understand that when I embark on a journey with the Father, I have many obstacles that come in my way. And many times I like to take the highway as opposed to the broad way, as opposed to the narrow way. Because it's just easier. Let me take the detour now. I'll just take the detour. Let me take the off-ramp. I'm not going to stay on the highway that he's got for me, because this highway might just come with a couple of challenges. So let me take the detour quickly. I'm going to take an off-ramp. I'm going to take the off-ramp, but I'm going to have to get back onto the highway again, because this is the highway that's leading me to the place of where I need to go. And that is why we are on a journey with our Creator. We are in a journey with the Holy One. And we are on this journey with our Father. And He's so patient with us. And so even though we take many detours in our life, the detours just helps us to be able to bump our head along the way. And then eventually we come to our senses and we surrender and we come back onto the highway again, because it's the highway of holiness that He's put us on. But you see, the highway of holiness comes with a price. And already the first price that there is scarcity of food. So it's not to say that the scarcity of food is not going to come our way. But how are we going to behave? Are we going to take the shortcut? Oh, wait a second. So now I can't buy food unless I take the mark of the beast. So what, am I going to take this mark in order for me to be able to get the food that I need? We must understand these challenges are going to come our way. And we are on a journey. And we are going to learn from our Father of faith. So Abba Yahuwah, I just want to thank you. I thank you, Abba Father, because you are wanting to reveal yourself. And I thank you, Father, that you are going to reveal yourself through the scriptures, through these pages of your scriptures, for us to understand that you are a Father that loves us, and you've put us on a highway of holiness. You want set apartness, Father. You never wanted us to take detours. You never wanted us to take the broad way and the broad path, but you wanted us to go on a narrow path, and this narrow path might present itself with many challenges. But that is why you want to strengthen us in faith, so that knowing what we stand for will limit what we fall for. Because when we have faith in who you are, we can overcome the giants that will come our way. What is this uncircumcised Philistine that will stand before me, is what David said when he knew the covenant that he had with his father, because he'd already slain the bear, he'd already slain the lion. So what was the Goliath going to be before his face? Nothing, because he already knew the victory that he had with you. And so I thank you, Abba Father, that this is an exciting journey that we are embarking on, to be able to understand that Abraham was going to have to learn to embark on a journey to have faith in who you are, because you are going to cut covenant with him. You are going to be his covenant-keeping Father. And even though he was going to be faithless, you are going to be faithful. And I thank you, Father, that even when we are faithless, you are still faithful. Because you are the one that takes us by the hand, and you are the one that is leading us on this path, even when sometimes we cannot see the road ahead, but we are to trust you, to know that you have our best interests at heart. And so thank you, Abba Father. Thank you that your name is going to be exalted on high, because at the end of the day, we can say, my Abba Yahuwah, he's on his throne. And he's the one who has delivered me. And he's the one who's going to get all the glory, the honor, and the praise. So that we may reflect you, so that your name is going to be exalted, not ours. It was never about us building a name for ourselves, but about us building up your name. Your name is to be exalted. Your name is to be glorified. Your name is the mark. And so I thank you, Father, for revealing your name to us. And forgive us, Abba Father, where we have so flippantly removed it from our Bibles. Forgive us, Father, for what have we done? But I praise and I thank you, because we are in a time of the restoration of all things, and we are embarking on a journey to have all things being restored in its appointed time, and now is the appointed time. And so I thank you for this. Thank you for your word that gives us life, and life in abundance. I praise and I thank you for this in Yahushua's name. Amen.